want to this is a connection to my video I was making previously about the word, and I really want to thank God with this video. I really actually want to thank God because God is real, and I was having me a bad. I'm not gonna say I was having a bad day, but I was having a day that it wasn't getting off to a good start. But I was wanting to make a content like this, and then the brother walked by and blessed me like that, and just spending time like. When you eat a meal with someone, it's very deep. Any person that you sat down and ate a meal with, it's a deeper form of communing than you normally do. Any person you give somebody if somebody gives you something you can touch, like clothing, or you give that to them, that means a lot. But if somebody eats food with you, that also means a lot. And this brother, he blessed me, and you could tell by his English that he wasn't Americanized, and by his word. And sometimes when you spend time with people from another culture, it's really a blessing because some of what you've experienced, like I grew up in American culture, but I don't get any really favors for that. And the more people that would really appreciate me as being American are people from other cultures, but that over the channel of respect. Because my father was born in Africa, and he came to America as an adult, as a non-traditional student, and already in his mid-20s. And so he's been in America as long as I have. But when I grew up with my dad, he was you could say I grew up in an African household because I grew up under an African man that understood himself as an African man, and he thought and spoke like an African man, though using English and studying at English universities. But he really inculcated respect. I can't, like, a lot of people, it'd be hard to appreciate, like, some things are hard to understand from another culture. It's hard to understand what that feels like to grow up with an African man. Because I remember that there were a couple of times I was out with him, like when he was older, and he had some his health business, and like he stood up to some of these people that were encountering him, and they weren't used to actually meeting a man from Africa that was unapologetic about his background. So there's different things, there's different like ways that people interact in America that's very different than other cultures, but sometimes it can be disrespectful. It's not actually always disrespectful, but it could feel disrespectful if you're not from it. It's just a different way. It's a different familiarity that people assume in America, and it can be to the affirmative or negative. You can do cool, sexy shit interacting like that, or you can lose opportunities interacting like that. So it works for different people, but they weren't used to someone like my dad, who is very principled. My dad's not only principled in how he deals with people, but he's principled in all he does. Like if he has himself a medical appointment, or any business that day, he's gonna be up hours early, dressed early, showering early, and he's painstaking to detail. Or like if he has, one time he needed to get something welded, and they're trying to overcharge him, so he watched videos and did what the hell he had to do because he wasn't going to come out of the money. Not that it was too expensive, but that he wasn't going to get ripped off about something like that. He wasn't going to come out of the value, because if he would have spent it, he could afford the cash, but he would have been losing value for how much they charge, and he would have been damned if he would allow himself to do that, because he would have changed at that point, and that's also damnation. So when people come around trying to change you and stuff, that's actually the beginning of your damnation. If you know how horrible that is, to feel like you've lost a sense of self, of coordination, of what your real instincts are, and how you feel about things and how you express yourself. If you get to that point, sometimes it started with people changing you. Like imagine Michael Jackson, right? We all know Michael Jackson is one of the great men that have blessed our lives in so many ways. But when you see his appearance, as some of the cosmetic surgery goes, you would wonder, is this a disease? Because we all are led to believe and think that a lot of Michael Jackson's going under the knife had been cosmetic and not health related, because that's a different thing, surgery versus cosmetic surgery. But that is self-elected surgery, or maybe other people advertise and solicit him to get the surgery, but he both selected and or solicited once being influenced to undergo that. But you could say, if you take Michael Jackson as a boy, the brilliant Michael Jackson as a boy. Now our gifts in this life are ours, are truly us. So this life doesn't regret what it blesses us with. So Michael Jackson is still all he had ever been as part of the Jackson 5. But as his appearance goes, you couldn't actually be more. I don't mean to be egregious, and I'm not. But as a child, I appreciate the beauty of all children, not the least of which black children. But I'm also a black person. If you look at how beautiful Michael Jackson was as a boy, a child, that in conjunction with his talent, you can't get any more brilliant and beautiful than that. But then as a man, after having undergone some of those cosmetic surgeries, I'm not saying he wasn't also beautiful that way and creative that way, because your choice is part of your beauty too, and it's a function of his beauty, his choices. But that's a lot of difference, and to me, it looks less natural and more a little bit more contrived, his appearance and his existence at that point, at least in terms of his skin complexion goes. So that's an example of how you can imagine before he would have went from the boy Michael Jackson to the latter stage, or him as a man after the surgery, which he looked. I'll take that. I'll recant that. Michael Jackson is still Michael Jackson, however he looked with, and that his latter appearance actually went with his music too. So he ain't wrong for that. But you can appreciate he would have had people in his ear at least a little bit all the way since he was a boy. Hey man, we know you can sing that song really good, but what if you took the music up to this key right here? And then what if you also wore that and said, I know you like that too, but just try this right here. And then that, you make so many suggestions to a person, and then they can lose sense with where's the real them start and stop. But also, it's your prerogative to try things that work and don't work, and what work for you later may be based on things that you tried before and worked and didn't work, but they were of your own choosing and inspiration for the most part. So unsolicited advice, unsolicited alterations, it can really change things. And if you appreciate my channel, I talk a lot about principles. Principles and dynamics are, they're a little bit more transcendent. Like for example, the color green exists at a certain wavelength, but I think a better way to understand that would be angles. I talked to this great man on a train, and he said that most of life, the difference between anything is of degree, and thereby it's a matter of angles. So the way that one light would, like for example, you take a prism, right? The light, the same light is going through a prism, but as that prism rotates, the color appears to change because the actual angle of the refraction of the light changes, and your entire perception of the meaning of that light, your appraisal of that light, is actually changed by the angles of the prism. But it's a little bit arbitrary because the light is not false. As the prism would shine yellow, green, purple, red, the light didn't actually change, but your perception is not false because it's bringing out a different range of what's potentially there at the angle. So in this channel, I'm talking angles. I was thinking of this song. There's a song called YBE, Young Black Entrepreneurs by Prodigy. He sang that song, No Such Thing as Halfway Crooks, when he was with Mobb Deep. Prodigy and this artist named BG, they had that song Young Black Entrepreneurs. And there's this one thing who's like, I'm talking angles too. Let me straighten that shit out for you. Peep it. I'm the head nigga in charge, the best kept secret. But chill, so I'm saying this channel, I'm talking about angles and like themes and dynamics. I got that from Jason Black. Jason Black talks power dynamics. He doesn't talk dating in itself, politics in itself on the business channel. He talks about dynamics. So with this channel, I'm commending and offering dynamics, but not soliciting advice. Hey, you should do this. You should not do that. I'm not recommending that because to me, I don't appreciate when that's done. And I wanted to make that distinction that this channel is not in offering advice, soliciting advice, commending advice, but just appreciating angles that I perceived as a lens. So this channel is no more than a lens at best. But I did have some content about the Holy Bible that I wanted to go into today, but I otherwise a little bit lost the train of thought. Oh, but like with Michael Jackson, like that thing about like advice and things like that can really change someone. So before the drastic changes would happen, somebody might have been in somebody's ear. And so I just wanted to point that out. And then with this channel, I wanted to talk a little bit about two things with this content today. One is I want to talk about indignity, and then also the Holy Bible. So if a person is angry at another person, that's indignation. That because you're treating that person with less than dignity, but by the anger, you're actually validating the. So if you're just rude if you're laughing at somebody, like if somebody is has like long arms and then you walk like this, you're like woo, 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 like a monkey. You're mocking them. You're showing them less of dignity. That's some of the least of dignity you can show someone, to mock them. But you're doing so laughing, so you're actually doing it like we're not even explaining. You're doing it just because you can. By the point that, but what you're communicating is that you don't respect something about them. Because if you respected somebody, you would show them dignity. So if you are showing somebody indignity when they haven't been disrespectful for you or wrong towards you, then in terms of ethics or familiarity, then you are saying that you are disrespecting them because they're a lot worthy of respect, likely because of something in their appearance. So the mere fact that they have long arms and they're here in this venue with those long arms. They should have known better than to come here looking like that. So that's why, that's the pretext and the grounds to make fun of them. Just because I can, but also just because you're you and you're also around me is why I'm disrespecting you. That's like mocking somebody, laughing about it when they didn't do nothing to bring that on. But then if you're angry at somebody, or then also they say that if, like, a lot of people who are police, law enforcement, they'll say that if you've dealt around criminals have some of the most sophisticated ideas about justice and ethics that you can imagine, because in order, we're born with a conscience in this life. Like we're possessed of a conscience at all time, and that's how we manage ourselves and exist. So we have to, a better word than conscience is a self-concept. You have to have a self-concept to act. I think that sometimes people experience things that they call nighttime paralysis, where you wake up at night and you can't seem to move your body like that. I think that part of that might be is that some of your sense of self is lost in sleep. So when you wake up at night and you can't move like that, you can perceive yourself, you can see yourself, but you don't quite feel like yourself. That is, you don't have, because a lot of people would say that some people are arrogant. Some people, so you have arrogance and faith. Arrogance is a form of faith. Arrogance is faith in oneself and one's attitudes and ideas. That's arrogance, and that's not all the way bad. It's I think probably arrogance and confidence is somewhere between arrogance and faith. But the one unique trait in human beings that's almost universally attractive is confidence. Some people like funny people. Some people don't like funny people unless they're really funny. Some people like quiet people. Some people are turned off by quiet people. But what's more, some people, you may get favors and invitations and advances being handsome. You may not, or anything else, being buff. I mean, being muscle bound or not, being slim or not. But one of the most universal forms of appeal is confidence. But that too, one of the greatest strengths is faith. So people are actually attracted to strength. According to Casey Zander, the thing that people are attracted to in other people, in their mannerisms, in their speech, in their interactions, in their relationships, is strength. That's also very. If somebody is a bodybuilder, right? They have a lot of muscles, but you can appreciate that they have too much of muscles. Like, those muscles don't go with their actual lifestyles or their demands. So they're actually building up those muscles to impress people. That's not strong, and people can on a subtle level, people can peep. Yeah, this person has a lot of muscles, but they also might be insecure is what's driving them to have those muscles. But if they have confidence and they happen to be strong, then that really works. But I'm saying confidence is true strength and true confidence, but it's also a form of faith, because we only know so much, we only can perceive so much. We've been through a lot, but we haven't been through all things. For us to do anything, for us actually, we have willpower, right? The ability to move, mobility, vitality, mobility. That's actually requires for you to engage your willpower. You actually have to believe in yourself enough to engage your willpower, but you have to have a sense of yourself to do that. So I think that when people wake up and they get they're arrested by night paralysis, some of their sensation of being congruent as a person is not there. And then, like, so some people would say that when you when you dance, right? Like, some people say somebody can or can't dance, they have rhythm or not. But when you're actually dancing, you're actually you can't entirely dance consciously. You have to. It takes more. Dancing is like a total thing. It takes your total body, of our entire awareness of our mind. Our mind is not entirely conscious. I just got in trouble for trying to explain that to someone the other day, that I had come across that insight while studying, is that we are conscious, unconscious, and subconscious, which allows us to be conscious, unconscious, and subconscious. Because if at any moment we weren't all of those, then we couldn't be either one of those and or go between the other. So we're always all of those. But like sound, for any sound to exist, all potential sounds are imminent within whatever sound is manifest. All sounds are latent within what's manifest in order to give enough contrast for it to have meaning and be perceptible. So too for your consciousness, the different grades of consciousness, the others are imminent or latent with whatever is expressed. So if I'm crystal clear sober, the actual other ranges of consciousness, intoxication, dreariness, tiredness, fatigue, stupor, insanity, all that. So they say, man, that guy's brilliant, man. You got this guy, like, they're doing math, they're like, huh, this, that. And then if we only do the Pythagorean theorem, and then if we do pi equals mc squared, wait, no, 2, because e equals mc squared. No, put that right. Someone's brilliant like that, right? Within all of that brilliance, you can see that there's actually something of insanity in there. And what's captivating to people is that here goes someone that's damn near basically insane, but they're actually getting the better end of that and using it to an objective, as somebody who wasn't so insane couldn't get such an impressive objective. So you're actually impressed by their insanity as much as their clarity is a brilliant person like that. And so a lot of people would say that insanity and clarity both attend brilliance and are part of what it is to be brilliant. But for us to also exist at all and move at all, think at all, we have to have a sense of self. And I think that's another thing too, is that when people experience substances for the first, like, some people can experience a substance and they can still be viable like that, vigorous like that, competent like that, clear like that. Some people take a substance, the same substance, and get knocked off their ass differently, likely based on prior experience, but it's still true. Some people can be affected differently. Part of the reason that someone might be congruent and effective while under the influence of something and not might be how their sense of self is that how does that experience affect your sense of self? Like, for example, when I used to get, I know alcohol, you call that shit face. I don't know what you call that when it's not alcohol, but you're out of here somehow. Maybe like a space cadet. When that would happen to me, before I would get like so faded that it's not that I wasn't cognizant, but I was like seeing things on a different lens that made life look extreme. And then people who couldn't see how extreme life is also extreme for being ignorant about how extreme it is. But I would have a thought like, so I'll do what I do. And then my mind will open, I'll be like, damn, when I like peanut butter, right? I like peanut butter sandwiches, but damn near, if I could get away with it, I'll just take a slab of peanut butter all on a knife like that. Do I look as stupid as I think I do trying to swallow peanut butter? Because you can't actually swallow that. How do you actually eat peanut butter? I'll think a thought like that, and I'll be like, damn, people must look at me like I'm crazy. Damn, then I start to feel crazy because my self-concept got crazy because I had an epiphany. It wasn't wrong, the epiphany. It's kind of weird eating peanut butter, and you would have to look a certain kind of way. And I normally don't think about how I'd look that way. Like seeing myself. So sometimes the substance, it just makes you look at yourself, but your self-concept has changed. But like that, usually we all need to have the bare baseline of self-concept to be effective. So even a criminal, they can't afford to be just dead ass wrong in their own eyes too, because that would affect their self-concept and their what they can do, which is called agency. What you can do for yourself and towards others is called your agency. If you lost your self-concept, you couldn't do that. So all people, if you took anyone in life, any walk of life, is some form of criminal. Whatever the law is, we all do different things that are less than ethical. And even if you're the most ethical person, you can be faced with the ethical dilemma. For example, if you were at a dock, right? There's a song by Otis Redding, beautiful, one of the great soulful singers of our time, of recent centuries. Otis Redding. Here's a song called "Sitting at the Dock of the Bay." It's about San Francisco. He had come from like Georgia and traveled to San Francisco as his last hope in this life, and there he is by the bay. But if you were at the dock of the bay, and two like say middle school age children, like 130 to 150 pounds, they fall in the water at the same time somehow, and they can't swim. As a man, you're only strong enough to save one of them potentially at a time. And it's very hard to save someone drowning because they're combative against everything, the water, and you two trying to save them. So which of the two would you save? Some people would say the boy over the girl. Okay, but what if they're both girls? The one with the better future. Okay, what if they're both twins? So in you doing that, you actually just relegated another of two children to their fate. You couldn't have done more than that. You know that. But on a level, you still denied one of them the opportunity to continue to live in preference to the other, however you reason that. So that's an ethical dilemma. But we have different, so any person there's different ethical implications of what they do. Like the way that what you do affects others and yourself, but in the first place yourself, then others. That's called an externality. I picked that up from Naomi Klein. She did some brilliant books about, she did a book called No Logos, and I think shock doctrine. So the shock doctrine is about how big business profits from calamities, and people are set to gain, but also are aimed to gain from calamity. And then she also talked about like logos is like the actual double dirty dealing of businesses and what that means to other countries, like where they source labor and resources, and also this country. And then so that's called an externality. But even a normal person, everyone in life is actually their own form of business. Everyone's a businessman and woman in normal life if you have the full scope of agency and autonomy as an adult, because we're in a financial gamed system. So we have to, anything we do has financial implications, which means it has business implications. And no business has a 100% approval rating, and no business is free of externalities. That's potential calamities and deficits. That's a function of that business operating, which is why most businesses, if you're really getting on with that business and doing long term, they have different disclaimers and waivers that you sign to deal with them. And or like even like a lot of books, and even books sometimes in online content will be attended by disclaimers. That too, also movie and content, it'll have a disclaimer, because they understand that on a sophisticated level, on a subtle subliminal level, or indirect causal level, their influence can appreciably cause you damage enough that a lawyer could explain it to a jury, and that jury could potentially award you award you for what you would have been lost based on how you were potentially victimized by their knowingness or their ignorance of what they were doing. So there's a disclaimer like that. But most people's goings on some way or level affect themselves and others in a detrimental way. And but so everyone is a degree of a criminal, and the more so of criminals don't actually break laws. They might write laws and they game laws. So real actual criminals, that is successful criminals, they do more so of gaming than they do of depriving in itself. The depriving is a function of the game in the first place. So life is a game, but so criminal is a form of the. So if life is a game, the game of life, a criminal is a form of the game player that has a unique approach to the rules that may not be ethical, that they're likely not be ethical if they're designated criminal. But it doesn't have to involve breaking of any of the rules of the game, and it's done stronger without breaking the rules of the game, according to a lot of artists' take on that. But somebody, whether someone's doing that or they're a petty, so if someone's actually breaking laws at all or a lot of laws, they're more of a petty criminal. But a petty criminal, they're full of rationalizations, sophisticated rationalizations. So people can rationalize anything, and likely do. Not the least of which are criminal. They always have justification for things that they would do, and the grounds they would do it on. But before I got to that, I was talking about gluttony. I think in the other video is that gluttony is one of the sins, because gluttony does injury to yourself. And like I'm saying, most crime is actually a group initiative. Usually, if somebody's a criminal, they're operating as a group, or they learned something about how they're doing that from another person, so it's collective like that. But then even if you are abusing food, food is one of the most benign, innocuous of substances, of agents in our environment, but you can maim yourself and or others and or yourself with your choices in food. And by the time you would do that, you got different support to do that, because the advertisers, the scientists curating the food, the different people that would prepare, transport, offer the food, advertise the food, then the different things that you do in your life that give you the means to purchase the food or the standpoint to enjoy it, all, and then your own decision, all that combines to help you injure yourself with the food. But as you are a member of this life, so when you're born, you're given a birth certificate, but before you're born, you were prayed for, you were loved, you were anticipated by your relatives at least, but also this life itself loves you. So if you do injury to yourself, that's an offense against this life itself and those who love you and have supported you. But if you threaten yourself, that's also an offense against yourself and people who love you. So I wanted to point that out. So when people suffer indignities, like it's not necessarily injustice, but it's a lack of respect or a bad look that you were given, or so another word of indignity is like having something painted upon you. Oh, so what I was saying is that a lot of, so if you show somebody less than dignity because like on the grounds of humor, that's like mocking someone. But if you show someone less of dignity based on ethics or like or transacting business, that's called righteous indignation. So less than dignity is indignation, but we'd more so know that as anger, but it doesn't have to be anger. That's indignation. Then if it has a grounds to it or a justification, that's righteous indignation. Indignation is the first point of prompting someone to leave a vicinity or a group, and that's also a way of undermining and or dispossessing someone of their standing in a community and what they own, and actually dispatching to the point of someone losing their life. So in olden times, so now you can get banished from a job, from an online platform, from a friend circle. Before that, all of life really revolved around the church, so you could get banished from a church. Before that, you could get banished from a community in nature. So it's actually very ancient, old, primal thing about banishing people and excommunicating people. But at least since the time of feudalism, or what we have as neo-feudalism, where we have some pretenses or some realities of actual liberty within an actual still feudal structure, such as the need for things like landlords and private property and employers and stuff like that, exactly function like feudalism, but in a modern context. But now when people are there's a in the olden times, if you were prompted to leave a community, a vicinity, there would be different things for people to stand to gain from that. It's the same now, but now it's a little bit less personal, because some of you don't even know could stand to gain from you losing where you're at, your home or your job or something you own. That's called gentrification, and it's the same thing as banishing people in the old days. But so for as a human being, instinctually, when you begin to suffer indignation, whether you're being mocked humorously, or someone's raising their voice at you, or someone's being passive aggressive with you, and then other people see that, and then other people see how you react, and they favor one or the other of you, because there's no choosing between two masters, but also there's no being neutral between people that are really at odds, at war, long enough. So that indignation is the first step to prompting someone to leave a shelter of a community, a job, a religion, or something like that. And so on an instinctual level, it incites fight or flight, and it brings a lot out of people. But at different times in nature, you can appreciate that both men and women have suffered both indignity and righteous indignity, and banishing and excommunication to be prompted to their own devices or their own friend circle outside of the support of a larger community. That amounts to surviving and hacking it alone. Men and women have both sustained that and survived that together and alone, but likely differently together and alone, such that some of our needs as human beings for acceptance, and a lot of people say, hey man, you're just seeking validation, Your mind itself actually is a validating, seeking, and affording. You afford validation to others, and you seek it, because in a broader sense, that affects the way that you're able to understand yourself, and thereby be understood by others in a group setting. So validation is part of group membership and currency. But that true, no human being can sustain indignation indefinitely and not experience detriments to their psyche first, their self-concept second, and then their competence third, and their viability in a group fourth. So indignation is very heavy for anyone to sustain, but they say that as a rule of thumb, by and large, it's experienced differently by females than men, because a lot of men, we've been having our ass handed to us and being disrespected and mocked each day of our life as we're now 40 and older and blah, blah, blah. But women, that too, but differently. So men require respect for their psyche to be whole. Women can handle disrespect differently. Sometimes women can handle more of disrespect, but women can't handle a lack of dignity. So neither can men, but they can sustain it differently. So when people do suffer, a lot of times people who are homeless, they act out a lot. They shout, they get in useless fights. Part of that is actually a cycle and a reliving and a reenacting of the indignity they have suffered. So, and a lot of times in extended venues, like whether it be like a soup line or shelter, there's a lot of useless fighting, but also there's a lot of indignation that's mean-spirited and arbitrary and takes advantage of people. And so I want to say that when indignity happens, a lot of times you can't do anything about it because it's sophisticated, but also it's cooperative, so that you simply don't have the standpoint or the numbers to say or do anything about it directly. But with things like YouTube and stuff like that, you can speak to it, you can speak truth, you can shed light on it, and that's the only way that it's resolved, is to shed light on it, because nobody likes to be seen in less than the greatest light, even people that are indignant towards other people. um but so I wanted to talk a little bit about some indignities that I had suffered today, but I was actually so blessed by the man that sat down and shared his food with me that I actually feel healed of that, and I can make another video of that at another time without going on to that. But he actually blessed me at that moment a lot. And the thing I was saying too is that my father is from another culture, and he's principled in all things. But so growing up around a staunch African man like I did, it's a different understanding of respect and how what that does to a child. Because as a child, I was like any other boy, but I would not talk back to my parent. And the thought of another person being able to give my father grounds to have a talking with me, that was enough to have my behavior checked. So I grew up with strong respect in my household, and then also in life, I understood respect a lot in life. I had to, that can, all things have a light and a dark side. So if you're preoccupied with respect at all times, that can be stifling to, because you're not at a point, in a way that's not what it is to be human, to be this most respectful, most serene, most dignant person. When sometimes because you can't experience childhood like that or young adulthood like that, being all, because how do you actually have fun being nothing but respect all the time? So there can be a dark side with that. But what I'm saying is that me being this American person, I don't always get a lot of people that like me just because I'm so American, including other Americans. But when I meet people from other cultures that are nothing of American the way I am, but they have respect, they can